Heart pounding, following yet another nightmare, Rebecca Finlay slumped back down in the bed. The darkness her cover as the moon peeked through the small gap in the curtains. She listened as the car crunched its way slowly up the drive. "He's back. You know what's going to happen next," the voices warned. "Shut up," she snapped. She was too tired to listen to them tonight. A soft thud as the car door closed over. Footsteps that failed to be silent as they approached the door, and she heard the key slip easily into the lock. She heard him slip off his shoes before making his way up the stairs. He was home. Lucas was back. Her stomach clenched at the gentle thud of the bedroom door being pushed open. She closed her eyes and she sighed. She knew what was coming next. Who would have known that such violence could be so silent? It was as though they'd perfected the art of keeping it all behind closed doors. Muffled sobs as the blows came raining down. Silent screams as feet made contact with the soft underside of the belly. Each punch and kick silent in its brutality. The level of control measured from maximum impact as each blow was administered. And then it was over, just like that, spent. Lying back, she tried to fight the sleep she craved. But Rebecca knew sleep wouldn't arrive alone tonight. She knew her demons awaited her, and she wasn't sure she could take any more. She became aware of the morning arriving as the sunlight struggled to make its way through the curtains, the evidence of the night sharp in the first light of day. The vase gifted to them on their wedding day lay in pieces, the pale watery sun reflecting the shattered mess that was their lives. Stepping gingerly out of bed, fearful of waking Lucas, Rebecca slowly picked her way through the debris, across the landing and into the bathroom. She started as she caught sight of her reflection in the mirror. Staring back at her was a woman she recognised from times gone by. Dark shadows framed her eyes, hair lank and lifeless, and skin grey as the dead. She clenched her fists 10 times, matching each clench with a deep breath. The repetition soothed her. It brought a sense of calm to her inner turmoil, and she knew that with careful attention she could bring order to her day. Opening her eyes, she stared into the mirror, seeing only her demons from the night before, the sharp light behind her accentuating the horrors. 10 deep breaths, 10 clenches of her fists. She blinked. They were gone. She stepped into the shower to wash the night away. Returning to the bedroom, she stood and she watched Lucas breathing softly, his face buried in the pillow. He looked so peaceful. Memories flashed before her as he gave a soft sigh and stirred. Tears filling her eyes, Rebecca slipped out the room quietly before he awoke. She didn't think she could face him after what had happened. It was getting worse and it can't go on much longer, she thought. The phone rang as she reached the bottom of the stairs. She thought about ignoring it, but it could be work. Sighing, she answered. "Hi, it's Rebecca speaking." Deep breathing, then silence. She slammed the phone down. This was the 5th one this week. Lucas was already in the kitchen. He looked straight at her as though she was a stranger. Eyes blank, he stood perfectly still as though trying to predict her next move. "Can he not see it was him that done this to me?" Rebecca asked herself. "Has he no insight at all? Does he forget that as soon as it's all over, is it only me that's left with the aftermath of the destruction day after day while he just gets up and gets on with things as though nothing has ever happened?" No words were spoken, yet the air seemed to spark with electricity, creating a dark tension. The underlying message was clear. This was not over yet, not by a long chalk. Rebecca watched as Lucas ate his toast, cleaning up the kitchen methodically as he went, opening the cupboards to check that the tins were facing the right way, stopping to rearrange the mugs so that the handles faced outwards, and wiping down the surfaces until every possible germ was eradicated. She counted off the rituals in her head: tins, mugs, surfaces, cutlery drawer and fridge. She knew it off by heart, and knew that he would already have been through the living room with a fine-tooth comb, making sure that each cushion was plumped and sitting at the perfect angle, each magazine arranged neatly across the coffee table, and each book's spine pushed into a line perfectly with the others. She knew he was aware of the consequences for him if things were not in place. She tilted her head and looked at him as he prepared to leave for work. Really, Lucas, I don't know why you're so obsessive, she sneered. God, you're so screwed up with all that OCD shit. Folk must wonder why I put up with you. She watched him, daring him to contradict her. As she predicted, he said nothing. He just stared back at her. She imagined the counter-accusations poised, but remaining firmly on his lips. Rebecca knew that he knew there was no point in arguing back. She would never let him win. She smiled as he shook his head and left, watching his shoulders slump and the air hang heavy around him. She could hear the self-doubt nagging away inside his head already. She waited until he had left and almost gleefully dropped some breadcrumbs on the counter and pushed the mugs out of line. She picked up her keys and slipped out the front door. She shivered as something made her check over her shoulder. She looked around, but there was nobody there. Yet she felt the hairs on the back of her neck stand to attention. Somebody was watching her. Thank you.